is the Milo Beasley Show. This is the Milo Beasley Show. There's only one thing you need to know. This is the Milo Beasley Show. And now, here's your host, Milo Beasley.
And welcome to the Milo Beasley Show, episode number 360. And it's Halloween. We're celebrating Halloween in the only way that we know possible, and that is a steel cage match. So please help me welcome at this time. You may know them as Stone and Skull, the Manson Brothers. Please help me welcome Chris Margetis and Mike Carey. How are you guys?
Hey, doing great, Milo. Thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, thank you for having us,
I'm so glad
Milo.
to have you on. Last week I was just thumbing around doing some just looking up Halloween movies, and the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre pops up, and I was like,
wait a minute, you got to tell us where it popped up, because we can't find the damn
like,
so it's on Tubi. So it's on Tubi, and then I found out it's also on Vudu and Redbox, available for free.
Everywhere. Yeah.
So wait, it came up so you were looking for horror movies and it came up for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Win. Okay. Well, that was a question we had that we can't get answered from
Funny Tubi story.
Adventures.
I didn't even know it was on Tubi, and I'm searching around Tubi, and they're like, "Hey, Chris Margetis, you might enjoy this movie with Chris Margetis in it." And I was like, "Oh, hey, we're on Tubi. All right."
Oh yeah, they totally dumped on us. But that's okay.
So that's where I found it. And then as I was like reading I was like, I'm reading the description. I was like, wait, this is about wrestling. Wait, what?
Kinda.
So I was like, so I have to watch this. And then I watched like the opening. So the opening bit, I didn't realize that it was it was like the throwback with the
the VHS and all that
type thing. And I was like, good Lord, what is that? And then it goes to real time, time. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I was watching, and I was like, this is fantastic. And then I'm watching, and then the lingo that you guys were using in the movie, I was like, okay, hold on. Like,
these guys are workers.
I was like, it is just way too smooth. I mean, you watch a bunch of other wrestling movies. You watch like The Wrestler, right? Like, Mickey Rourke did a great job, but when they're talking, you're like, okay,
it's forced. It's a forced thing,
right? But then when you guys were talking, I was like, okay, had to pause, and I had to I was like, all right, let me check this out.
I'm
and then I was like,
very happy right now. This
right, and then in IMDb, like in your notes, it was like, was a former professional wrestler. I was like, that's it. So how do you go from being a former professional wrestler to in the movie business?
That is a long and rocky road.
There's hardly enough time to even tell that story.
I'll give you the condensed version of it.
All right.
So the condensed version of it is both of us always wanted to be actors and were involved in acting to some degree or another, even during the wrestling days. When I had gotten I was a fireman for about 15 years. And when I retired, I told my wife, listen, I want to kind of push this acting thing and see what happens. So very quickly, I started to book speaking parts here in Chicago on TV shows as a villain, because I was used to being in front of the camera. I got a funny face, and I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Well, after a while, I had done just about all I could do here as far as, not that I'm above any of it. I had just kind of done it all already, and I wasn't going to go any higher. So I told him, like, you know what, I want to write my own thing. So I happened to be out in LA visiting Max Martini, and I called Chris, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. And, we met up and we were talking, and I told him about the script I had. And he was basically like, dude, nobody's going to put money into a drama, but it wasn't the first time I had heard that, right? For a first time writer, nobody knows who the fuck you are. So he's like, got to do a horror movie, man. You got to do something with a vampire in it or an alien or zombie. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, I love horror movies. Like, I am a horror film connoisseur, but I don't know how to scare anybody. But as fate would have it, my flight got canceled, and I was sitting in my hotel room, and I was thinking about it. So I call him up. I go, listen, I got an idea to this horror film. I said, but there's two conditions. You got to do it with me, and we got to, no matter how ludicrous we write it, we got to play it straight. And he goes, I'm in. So I very quickly, over a couple of months, wrote up a skeleton, and then he and I went over it and started fixing it. So what you see on the screen is a vastly different film from what we wrote, and not in its essence, but in each scene. So there's a lot of stuff got changed, a lot of stuff, we wanted to make it so that wrestling fans would like get a more behind the scenes look than they have with other films. There's a lot of smart marks out there, and we know that. So
I actually think that's the thing that didn't change actually from the original was what we, sadly pull back the curtain on for the wrestling industry, I think stayed the same from beginning to the time that we shot. A lot of the other internal stuff changed, but I've had people tell us, you mentioned it earlier, I learned more about wrestling from watching your film than I did watching The Wrestler.
And there was more of it.
Yeah. And we cut a lot out.
We cut a lot out. And originally, because we figured people who were lay people wouldn't know the carny language or whatever. So every time we would say a word, the frame would freeze and it would give the definition in a humorous way, of what it meant, like what a hooker was, what a shoot was, yeah, right. This also cost too much. Yeah, but they didn't mind putting up everybody at a 5-star hotel.
Well,
okay.
The question that I get the most is, what is a hooker? Like, people think, especially women, when they watch the film, they're like, "You guys talking about hookers the whole time? What's going on with the hooker?" And I'm like, "No, it's a carny."
It's an old term. Not even a lot of workers know what a hooker is. It's a really old term, but I broke in when they were still using it. So,
by the way, none of this is actually answering the original question of how we went from.
Well, anyway, so we wrote. That's how we did it, and we thought, nobody was going to buy us as leads in a film, even a low budget one, because nobody knew who the F we were. So originally the Manson brothers wore masks all the time. They were masked up the whole time, wore the hoods all the time. And at the very end, we took them off. But in the pre-production, when Chris and I were rehearsing and doing the comedy bits, we were laughing our asses off. As soon as we rehearsed with the hoods on, it was like the air got sucked out of it. And we were like, so in a very, like a 2-day period, we had to rewrite the entire film. Like we were going in to shoot like a week later.
We were a week from actually shooting, and we had to rewrite the entire movie.
We had to rewrite the entire film. We had to figure out when they put them on, when they take them off, what they did. It was a thing.
If you notice, we're holding them all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're holding them. We don't have them on. We have them on. If we have them on our person or whatever. But so we toiled with the script and many revisions of it for about 5 years. And 5 years, almost to the day that we decided we were going to do it, we started principal photography on it. So we got lucky. We would get people that would back us, and then they wouldn't, and then they would come, and then we worked with a bunch of guys who were supposed to be producing for us, and we're like, where's the money? Are you guys going to get any money? And then we got lucky when Max Martini got involved in those, because he really made it happen.
Right.
He did. It wasn't for him, this wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't for Mike Haggerty, the producer, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So we really got lucky. We made a lot of changes. I mean, that's the movie business. So anybody out there, if you're planning on writing a movie, don't get too attached to it, because you're going to change it. Yeah.
My advice, don't do it. Just get the hell out of it right away. Forget about it.
Yeah. So but we had a blast.
How did Bas Rutten, which I've met Bas Rutten before, and he is one of the nicest but scariest individuals on the planet.
He's the best. I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. He was in town with Kevin James.
Dude, he's the best, and he is one of the best actors you will ever see in your entire life.
He's phenomenal.
When we rehearsed the scene, if you recall the scene in the film where we're going back and forth outside of the dressing rooms, Mike and I are in street clothes. He's in full gear. Like, he's full gear the minute he walks in the door. And he tells that story about the parrot. And I remember looking at Mike and I said, it's like he's been telling that story for fucking 20 years.
And they wanted to cut that scene out.
Yeah. They wanted to chop it.
And we were like, they wanted to chop it. And originally in the script, Jack Cage's character says that story about Say Uncle and the parrot and all that.
Right.
But when Bas came on board, me and him were like, oh, dude, Bas will kill this thing. Let's give it. They wanted to cut the whole thing. And we had to beg him, Max, it'll be hilarious. He'll kill it. And a lot of people say it's one of their favorite parts in the movies.
Still one of my favorite parts in the movie, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was hard to not watch
two
it.
Stories.
Cracking up.
Bas is so hardcore. I have a pair of jeans that I call my Bas jeans because I was wearing them while we were rehearsing, and he was in full gear, and they got ripped from his studs or whatever he had on his belt buckle, and he actually bit me in rehearsals through my jacket. That's how hardcore he was going at it.
He's a method actor.
Zombified.
Clearly.
Dude, I'm like, you
like my
bit me.
Screwed up fingers.
Yeah.
Look at that finger.
But that guy, man, is like, I mean,
he's the best.
He's just incredible.
Super guy. So Max, everybody we got is because of Max.
Right.
Everybody
and Randy
we got
Couture as well.
Same thing. Got those. Randy's. We're both very, very close with Randy and Bas.
Yeah.
Like I would consider them brothers and best friends and things. But Max was responsible for all that. So originally the Bas Rutten part was going to be Tiny Lister. You can imagine that.
Then he died.
The Randy part, we actually originally wrote for Randy. We didn't know. It's a funny thing. I had been around Randy a bunch of times and had never actually formally met him.
Right.
Over the last 10 years. We originally wrote it for him, but then they were going to get everybody from, I don't even remember who that, like Holt McCallany and all these big actors were coming in and out of it.
Different names.
And finally he's like, what about Randy? And we're like, well, we wrote it for him, and Randy read it and loved it, and he wanted to do some comedy. So he just dived in, 100%, and he's great in it. He really was. And all those guys were just a pleasure to work with. Same with Jay Lund, who played Captain Marvelous, and Dave Meadows, who played Carson. Jason, who played Jack. It was
a great shoot.
Yeah, so
across the board, man.
I wanted to ask about that too. Like, so, the actors who you were like across the ring with and worked with.
They were actors.
They were actors.
Not workers.
Like, I couldn't find any information on them, but they were.
Jason's in a ton of stuff. He's in a lot of stuff.
I was going to say,
as far as wrestling goes, like I couldn't find
not to take anything away from Tim, but Jason, who's a stuntman too. I mean, we pretty much trained him in 3 days.
That's what I was.
And he's a phenomenal athlete, right? And at the end of the day, I hate to say this, but if you're not a good athlete, you're not going to be a good worker. You know what I mean?
You got to be able to walk and chew gum.
Yeah, there's a few people, but Jason is kind of an elite style athlete guy.
Yeah,
and I mean, he just picked everything up. And he
didn't spot us or anything.
No.
He was
light.
Was really good.
Yeah, he threw great drop kicks. He could do everything. And I mean, the even better part was, and again, this isn't taken away from Tim, who was the other guy, but Jason wanted to do. Oh man, I want to come off the top rope. I want to.
Yeah,
do this,
he didn't want to use any stunt man.
No.
Jason was. I met Jason at a Western, so he was the only guy I actually knew, aside from Chris, obviously, as an actor before we got on there. But we had 2 other guys from the local promotion in Albuquerque come in and help us out. And they were invaluable. I mean, they were great, helped us train those other guys. Those 2 guys worked the match out with us. So we did it, and then we taught it to them. And they played zombies in the movie and a bunch of other workers. So we had these local guys come in, and they were awesome, every one of them. And those were the guys we bumped in the ring in that big cage scene. It was actually a lot shorter scene than was intended. That was supposed to be a much larger scene. Here's the funny part about that wrestling scene. So Max, God love him, didn't know anything about wrestling. And I guess Chris and I kind of made a blunder when we weren't in the editing room, because I guess he wasn't sure on how that stuff was supposed to look, because he used all of the worst like bumps and everything. When me and him saw it, we were like, oh my God, they're just going to fry it. We're like, wrestling fans are just going to excoriate us. I mean, none of them have so far, but literally when we saw it, we're like, and even the stunt coordinators, like, where's the stuff we shot? Where's all the great shit? And they didn't use it. Like they used the stuff, like there's a scene where I take a knee off the ropes And I did a couple really good, got air and everything. He uses this one where I just kind of roll over and take a lazy old fuck bump. And I'm like, I killed myself so you could put that shit up there. You know, we shot that damn thing all day too. So it was like
we did
dude,
7
it was hard
takes of
work.
that match, and that's
just in wide shots. Then we had to do all the close-up shit that they didn't use.
You know, it's working, Milo. Like you know, do one match and then come back 6 minutes later. Do the exact same match.
Right.
And the first time we shot it, we had a crowd that was popping and the whole deal.
Yeah.
And every subsequent time, nothing but crickets the whole time. Everybody was
silent. They had to be quiet. Yeah, they were there. But they had to be quiet.
So hard, I cannot even tell you.
Oh, they had to be quiet?
Yeah, when we walk into the ring and you see us screaming and all that, that was absolutely silent.
Silent.
They added all the so when I'm screaming, I'm going, nothing's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
We did that all later. We looped it. Yeah, it was cool. The process was cool, but it was you're talking about two guys at the time who were pushing 50 and hadn't been in the ring, and I'll tell you, that ring was like
I hadn't been in a ring in 18 years, and we had one of those 2x10 rings, right? No spring in the middle, and it was just big enough because we got a 20x20 because we thought we were going to have a bunch of people in there.
Right.
Where you'd take a bump, and when you were running, it's bouncing, and every time you bump, it'd be coming up to meet you, and it was like a concussion.
Knock the shit out of you.
It was terrible.
It was so stiff, Milo. I'm telling you, it was the stiff. I'm like, dude, if this was my promotion and this was the ring, you'd better have a good insurance policy.
I'd have burnt that thing down for sure.
Did you rent the ring from like a local promoter?
We bought it.
We couldn't
we bought
find
it from LA.
One.
We had one made.
Buy it.
Yeah.
We had to have it custom made because nobody had a 20x20 ring. All the rings were too small because, like he said, we were going to have to put a bunch of zombies in there and cameras and all this other shit.
I know some people. Next time.
What's AEW use? Are they 18x18? What are they?
They're 20, I believe.
They're 20.
Yes.
Are they ropes or are they cables?
Cables.
Cables. Yeah.
What did we have? Cables?
We had ropes on the shoot, but I used cables my whole life. Ropes were New York only at the time. Basically.
So
we had ropes on one of the Windy City rings originally.
I was trained on ropes and worked primarily ropes down in Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'd much
well, that's the New York
Some
way,
of those cables will just beat you up.
Well, the cables will kill you. Yeah, your first time.
Sure.
A lot of those guys, they just put garden hose over it, and then they tape up the garden hose. I'm like,
Windy City.
Yeah, that would kill you. Yeah, so we had to have that. Yeah, so we had to have that ring custom made, and the whole time they're like, well, "Why does it have to be 20x20? Why does it have to be 20x20?" We're like, "Dude, trust us. It's got to be 20 by." And sure enough, we got there. He was like, "I don't know if we have enough room in there to do all this shit." I'm like, "That see, we do know some stuff." No, yeah. We know something, and then we had to have the cage custom made and everything else.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. This weekend, I was able to sit down at a convention, a horror convention, where I hosted some Q&As, and I hosted one with DB Sweeney.
Love it.
Oh my God.
He said to say hi, by the way. I told him I would be chatting with you this week.
Tomorrow.
Awesome.
But as we were talking about horror movies at the on stage in front of a crowd, he said, "Well, I have to tell you about this movie I did, the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre." So we talked about the Manson Brothers for a good while on stage in front of the audience. So he was
he's the best.
So happy to talk about it, and he said, if there's a sequel, it doesn't matter that his head. You know what? We won't get into that. That's spoilers.
Yeah, no, I know. No, trust me. He and I have talked about it a bazillion times, and the fact is, if we do one and we got something for him, he's in it. You know, we would love to have him, and we would love to have all the guys because everybody worked so damn hard. You know, something about. Well, I'll just mention Adrian Pazdar and DB Sweeney in particular because these guys are like A-list actors, right? They're not, schlubs like
they're not us.
They're not us. And when they do a little movie, when A-list actors do a little movie like this, a lot of the times they'll just phone it in and collect their check. Not these guys. They dove into it, And, they gave us props saying that we wrote it, characters that allowed them to paint with big, broad strokes, which was really nice. But the fact is they did all that stuff. They created those characters. Those were two characters that were not clearly defined in the script. And DB came in with a bunch of ideas, and me and him were like, yeah, that's great. That's great. Adrian too.
Dude, DB rolled in with the suit.
His own writing.
He rolled in with the toupee. I mean, he rolled in with everything.
Did he tell you a story about trying to buy the toupee?
No.
Oh my God. So he goes to a toupee shop and he walks in and goes, the guy goes, "Can I help you, sir?" He goes, "Yeah, I want the shittiest toupee you have." And of course the guy's like, "Sir, we don't have any shitty toupees here. They're all quality products." He's like, "Let me rephrase that. Give me the most inexpensive toupee you have." But he went to go to a couple of different places apparently. So, and aside from, giving them discussing the dialogue, he created all that. And the only thing we did with Adrian was we made him a gas huffer. Other than that, he figured out all the rest by himself. And they were both so awesome. I mean, taught us a lot too, as far as acting. When you sit down with those guys, like DB lives by me. So he and I will get together occasionally and watch films. Man, that guy knows more about film making. I mean, I've learned so much from him. Just he'll stop, and he'll explain to me why they're lighting it this way, what the director's intent was, and this and that. And I'm like, wow, because I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
He's just a wealth, and I was a phenomenal actor. Just a
I think
awesome
that's
guy.
one of the things that I say this all the time, and I don't include Mike and myself in this. But
no,
one of the things that Max did for us in the movie was he put these phenomenal actors in place that just kind of elevate, I mean, when you see the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre, you see that name, right? You're not expecting performance. And I think you get, I think you get it. Like, I think the performances are surprising because there's so many great actors outside of, again,
not us,
present company, that I feel like it really just, took it to, I hate the term next level. It just
right.
made it a lot better.
But it did. It elevated it, and it actually
really did.
It helped our acting because then we had to bring it up too.
Yeah.
And the other guys, Jay Lund, who played Captain Marvelous, and Dave Meadows, who played Carson, those guys, I mean, honestly, those guys played those things exactly how we intended it. And it was amazing because they're based on real guys.
Yeah, absolutely. From when and this is the connection I would draw. I saw the Shockmaster in your intro, Milo. I wrestled Fred Ottman one time, and I'm like, at the time I might have been 225. But when you work Fred Ottman, you got to go out there and you got to raise it to where he's at, right?
Right.
Same thing with these guys. Like you get on a set with them, you get in a ring with a guy who's been around the world. You got to elevate, and it's the same thing, And
we all learn from each other.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
we would watch them, and Randy would watch them, and then they would watch Randy, and then we would everybody learned from everybody else, and there was a lot of discussion like, hey man, how are you going to play this, and what should we do this, and da. And it was great. It was just a bunch of alpha males. You'd think everybody'd be like buddy effing each other, but it wasn't the case at all. Like everybody supported everybody. It was a really good open forum for experimenting with the scenes and things like that. So it was really great. I mean, it was such a fun set. I'll never forget
all of
it.
this in a movie about zombies and wrestling.
Right. Right.
It's not like we were
Trust
shooting
me
a
when
war
I
film.
A lot of people have told us that they've had such a fun time watching it. Well, we had twice as much fun making it. And I'll tell you, it was hard work. I mean, we were there at the crack of dawn. We didn't leave. We made sure we were the first ones there and the last ones to leave most of the time. I think there was only a couple nights where we left and they had to stay on to do something else. But we were there and constantly rewriting and acting.
4 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
That's it.
And at 8,500 feet above sea level, so we're blowing up. Poor Dave, when Dave and I did the fight scene at the end, like during one of the breaks, he's like, dude, I'm going to fucking throw up. And Dave was a SEAL. So Dave is a former Navy SEAL, right? He's a sniper. The guy's he's a legitimate badass. but it was tough. We were all like, and then I had pulled my groin or something, and we had to run around the ring, and the floor was wet, and I'm like, oh God, this is gonna fucking kill me. And Mike O'Hearn Mike O'Hearn legitimately beat the shit out of him. Like Mike is 100%. There's another guy we haven't mentioned yet, Mike O'Hearn, who was absolutely awesome in that. And when he threw Chris into the wall, like the first time, like you could hear it was like, and I was like, oh God, I'm like off camera cringing, and he's getting his ass whipped, and he had to do it, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. By the end of it, you know, he was almost dead. I was like, oh God, that was horrible. And Mike just got Mike like just brought it up every time they reshot it. Mike would up the intensity level. The guy's a mutant. He's a mutant. And he's our age too. He's early 50s. It's like,
yeah. So do you think that we might get a sequel?
Oh yeah. There's one in the works right now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be shooting it in March. It is what we like to call a peanut film, which is a micro budget because it's a long story. We have another script, but it's made for a much larger budget. We got into bed with some guys for financing, and they screwed us over, stole our money. So we had to start from scratch. So in between that film and the first one, we're doing a micro budget film. It's like the Manson Brothers and a little girl who sees a monster and nobody believes her. None of the adults believe her except the Manson Brothers. Why? Because they're like little kids. So it's going to be really cool and funny and lewd and gory and all that great shit that we had in the first one, but on a micro budget level.
So
hopefully we can pull it off.
So not necessarily a zombie movie, but still like a Manson Brothers. So we could see like
you'll see like a corpse movie, a corpse eating movie, a vampire film, a mommy. You know, who knows? But what we wanted to make it was like Kolchak the Night Stalker and Abbott and Costello,
right?
You know, basically doing the monster film. So there's always going to be a monster, a cult thing in there because that's what we love, you know. So we work them in there some way, and it doesn't make it's ludicrous.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No problem.
My headset.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can hear you.
I was gonna say, I know, right? Would have been better off if I was muted completely.
And we have a web series coming up too on arrowinthehead.com.
Yeah. So there's going to be, we're going to be regularly doing weekly a series on Arrow in the Head, their YouTube channel, where we talk about our favorite movies, but we don't review them. We just kind of share insights into why we like them. We draw connections with music, food, I don't know, wrestling, whatever.
Yeah, it's stuff that, like, you know, movies that horror people like. You know, everybody else would look at them like, oh, it's a shitty horror film. That might be shitty, but it's endearing, and here's why we like it. You know, we do it in character, so we're bickering and all that other stuff.
That's funny.
We do it as
that's pretty good.
We do it as Skull and Stone, and not Mike and Chris.
Because there's so much of a difference. Between the two. Milo, you hosted a bunch of panels. Who else did you talk with besides DB?
So I had DB and I had Robin Lively this weekend as well.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. I was supposed to work with Ryan Hurst this weekend as well, but unfortunately his flight was delayed, and we had a couple other last minute cancellations and stuff like that. Yeah. So
did you ever interview Brad Laurie?
I have not. No.
He's a great guy. If you ever
was it Orlando? Was it in Orlando?
It was in Orlando. It was called Spooky Empire.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right.
We have an agent where we're supposed to do more conventions, but we really haven't pushed the issue. But I think it's time we did because we get over well at these conventions. We do a little live bit because we bring more to the table than just sitting there signing autographs. Because mostly nobody knows who we are anyway. But we get up.
So
and
we have to be very proactive when we're there.
Yeah, we do it in character. So we, it's like if you see the movie and you liked Skull and Stone, you get Skull and Stone. That's who you get. So. Yeah, we really went over big time at Flashback Weekend this year. I mean, we were really shocked. And then we did a bit with Spenguli, and we were on they put us in his retrospective. Shout out to Spenguli. Thank you for putting us on your show. It was awesome. It was
Chicago mainstay, right?
Oh my God, the king.
For 43 years. Man. He's
Chicago.
awesome.
All right, so the next thing I want to do is a little segment called the Milo Beasley Show Frequently Asked Questions.
All right.
Oh God.
These are going to be, I'm going to ask you the same 5 questions that I asked to all my guests. There's no wrong answers per se, I guess.
Oh, trust me, there's wrong answers.
If they were
Are
wrong,
we
I would never
alternating
know.
questions, or are we both giving an answer for all?
I would like to both give an answer.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, question number 1. What was the first concert you attended?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, the first concert I attended, I was a Johnny come lately. So in 1988, I saw Great White open for Whitesnake at the Hampton County Coliseum in Virginia when I was in the Marine Corps. That was my first one.
Mine was supposed to be AC/DC with Bon Scott when I was 7, and I didn't want to go with my mom. And so my first one ever was Def Leppard and Uriah Heep, my freshman year in high school.
Ooh, Uriah Heep.
Yeah.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Those are good ones. My first concert was the Turtles. So, you know.
The Turtles, they played at China Club. When I was a bouncer at the China Club in Chicago, they came and played. Nice guys.
Yes, they were great.
One of them was like a bodybuilder even.
I've been able to interview Mark Volman, who was Flo. So
yeah,
it was very, very cool.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Question number 2. Do you believe in ghosts?
Oh,
100%.
100%.
1,000,000%.
Have you had
I had one at my old house that I just moved from. Like,
that's where I burned the house down. That's why it's an old house, because you got the hell out.
Yeah.
I worked at a bar.
He was very benevolent. But yeah, 100% I believe in ghosts. Yep.
I worked in a bar in Chicago called Excalibur, previously called the Limelight. Now
the Dome Room had ghosts, right?
Yeah, right. It's been on many shows, sci-fi, and everything. And I was the head bouncer in the Dome Room when I worked there, and that was haunted. It was all get out, man. Lots of shit went on there. It made me a believer for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Question number 3. In a little twist on a common question, in a movie about your life, who would play your parents?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I think we've been going over
living or dead. Do they have to be alive?
Preferably, but not necessarily.
All right. In a movie about my parents, let's see. Probably, I have 2 dads and a mom, so I think one of my fathers could be played by Al Pacino because he looks like him, because I'm horribly Sicilian. And then my stepdad, probably by, Anthony Hopkins, probably. Kind of soft-spoken like that. Yeah. And my mom, I don't know, maybe Rita Moreno. She looked like Rita Moreno, and she was real fiery. So, yeah, probably Rita Moreno.
This is going to be crazy, but I'm going to go with Tony Curtis for my dad.
Okay.
And Jamie Lee Curtis for my mom.
I could see that for your mom, though. Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
My dad
I
used
love
to get
this
told
question
he looked
because
like Tony Curtis.
it gives me insight to, like, again, I don't know your parents, but now I kind of feel like I do, you know, like that's
sure.
Yeah, no, it's actually a great
I love that question. That's a great question.
really a great question.
Yeah. Question number 4. This is a perfect time to do shout outs and stuff, or just tell us who is your favorite person to follow on social media.
You are Milo Beasley.
I'm going Milo Beasley too. I can't really say the ones that have you ever seen the guy on TikTok who has the cheetah, who does the "Hey cheetah" thing? He's my second favorite besides.
No, but I'm going to right now. Like
my second favorite, I would have to be Jocko Willink. You know who Jocko Willink is?
The name sounds familiar.
All right, Jocko Willink is a former SEAL team commander, and he's got a few books out called Extreme Ownership, and he's a very motivational guide. He's always talking about, I'm a veteran, so it means a lot to me.
Is he the dude that does all those super marathons?
I don't know if he does that. No, he looks like a gorilla. He's really like iron jawed and built. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Milo, the cheetah guy, has a plush cheetah that he says, hey, yo, Cheetah. And then the Cheetah shows up at the door and he's like, what's up? Yeah, so you're going to want to check him out. Trust me.
You can tell the difference between us, right?
Yeah.
Just a small.
Yeah. I have no honor.
All right, and then our last question, whether it was wrestling, doing jobs, what this, doing conventions, doing movies. What has been your biggest fanboy moment where you saw a celebrity, and either you couldn't speak or you spoke too much and put your foot in your mouth and you made
I've got mine 100%.
You know yours?
Yeah.
Shoot.
I was in Tucson, Arizona, probably, Christ, it might have been 10 years ago by now. And I'm at a diner, and Alice Cooper walks in and sits at the table.
Oh, yeah.
And my daughter says to me, Dad, are you okay? And so I got up out of the table. I walked over to the door, and there were two security guys there. And I said, is that Alice Cooper? And they're like, yeah, don't go talk to him. I said, I'm not gonna. I just wanted to make sure it was him. That was my biggest fanboy moment of all time.
I gotta be honest.
I don't mark out for workers or anybody. I mark out for musicians. And my whole life, since I was 7, has been about music, and I couldn't play an instrument. That's why I got into wrestling and acting and everything else.
I've said it.
I didn't.
So when I come across Alice Cooper, dude, I'm like,
I've said it before. The reason, wrestling is for people who want to be rock stars but can't play instruments.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Good point.
And have some athletic.
That's a really good way to say
it.
That's
what you do, right?
If I had to answer, I don't really fit. I mean, I was a bodyguard and all that for celebrities and stuff, so I kind of don't fan out. It's sort of not my nature. However, I didn't meet this person, but I went to their concert and I had never seen them before. And because it's a well-known fact that Chris and I are like the biggest Led Zeppelin fans on the planet, I saw Robert Plant this year with my wife, and I was like a 16-year-old girl in the audience. So Robert Plant.
That's pretty good. I know a couple years ago, Hart, the Wilson sisters, were trying to do a thing with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So I saw Hart in concert, and so their encore was Ann doing all Zeppelin songs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so a couple years ago
awesome.
here at the Greek, they were with Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience. That was he opened, and then they came on, and they did a bunch of Zeppelin together for the encore. But Hart does great Zeppelin. They're fantastic.
By the way, if you're a Led Zeppelin fan and you have not seen Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience, or now Led Zeppelin Evening, you have to go. Shout out to Jason Bonham. It's the closest you're ever going to get to Led Zeppelin. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are. Halloween night is getting close to midnight. Let's give one more pitch here for the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre.
Check it out. Halloween night's a perfect. It takes place on Halloween.
It does. I was going to say, if you're looking for something that takes place on Halloween, this is actually like Halloween 27. It happens on Halloween, and you get to see us save the world, which we do literally every time we make a film,
every time we make a movie, we save the world. But
like
if it's like that song says from the Jim Blossoms, if you don't expect too much from me, you might not be let down. So if you go into this film just thinking you're going to be entertained, you're going to be entertained. You're going to have fun. It's a fun movie. We don't take ourselves too seriously. No. Give it a tumble and you'll enjoy yourself. Have a couple of drinks.
I'm going with Quiet Riot. Well, now you're here. There's no way out. Here we go. That's the movie right there.
Let's get a shot of those shirts. I got it. Where can you get the shirts online?
You can get them on our website. We have two different ones would have funny sayings on the back, and you get this nice Manson Brothers hat.
We got coffee mugs. We got the whole deal.
So where can folks find you on social media and your websites?
MansonBrothers.com. That's our site. It's got all the merch and everything. I'm at if you go on TikTok, I'm thestonemanson.com, and you can hang out on Day Drinking with Stone Manson whenever you want to. which goes on regularly, and or the Chris Margetis on Instagram.
I'm the opposite. So I'm on TikTok. I'm at Real Skull Manson, and on Instagram you can find me at Real Mike Carey.
Fantastic. Thank you both for hanging out with me. I'm super excited.
Anytime, brother. It's been great.
Thanks, man.
Watched the movie and was like, I have to talk to you guys. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. And
thanks for having us, man.
If you liked it, and please spread the word. Thank you so much, dude.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we super appreciate it, Milo.
Say,
we really do.
If you haven't already, subscribe. But most importantly, just like the Manson Brothers film, tell your friends. Again, thank you all for hanging out with me, and we'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.